Access Minnesota. Issues that matter to you. Access Minnesota brings you the newsmakers and the stories that shape our everyday lives, with analysis from University of Minnesota faculty experts. Now, here's Jim Dubois.
We're at the offices of College Possible in St. Paul. It's a nonprofit organization whose mission is to encourage young people from lower-income families to attend college. Throughout the College Possible offices, you'll see scores of young people, many of whom are recent college graduates, who are working one-on-one with the high school students who are seeking admission to college or university. The young people serving at College Possible are members of the AmeriCorps. It's all part of a broader initiative by the Franklin Project of the Aspen Institute to encourage all Americans to perform 1 year of service. This month on Access Minnesota, we'll take a look at this ambitious initiative and hear from 3 people whose service has had a lasting impact on their professional careers. We'll also hear from Jeff Wilson of College Possible and the Franklin Project of the Aspen Institute. Jeff Wilson is a Franklin Project ambassador for the Aspen Institute and also the manager of administration and engagement for the College Possible program. Jeff, welcome to Access Minnesota.
Thanks for having me.
How did the Franklin Project start and how many years has it been in existence?
Well, back in 2012, General Stanley McChrystal was speaking at the Aspen Ideas Festival, and he was speaking with Bob Schaefer. And Bob asked about citizenship in America. And General McChrystal noted a general lack of cohesiveness and a lack of connectiveness in our country right now. And General McChrystal's solution in that moment for this problem was national service, broad, full-scale national service. So that was 2012. That idea took hold, and about a year later in 2013, General McChrystal, in partnership with the Aspen Institute, founded the Franklin Project. He is the chair of the Leadership Council and has assembled a large leadership council of folks that are also interested in national service. So you can think of the Franklin Project as really acting more as a guide and an advocate for national service. Right now in America, there's about 80,000 people serving in some fashion. Our goal at the Franklin Project is to create a measurable pathway to 1 million service positions by 2023.
What kinds of service are these young people providing?
They're serving in education. For example, a nonprofit in our community called College Possible has a mission of making college graduation possible for low-income students. And so their AmeriCorps members are serving with low-income students to coach them to and through college. So there's an example of some work in education. There's also the Conservation Corps of Minnesota, who's working on environmental issues. They are engaging AmeriCorps members in managing natural resources and responding to natural disasters and other environmentally related service. There's all sorts of different service, though. We also have AmeriCorps members serving in economic opportunity for low-income communities. We have AmeriCorps and national service members serving on, to create food security and serving to think about health issues. So think of almost anything you could do in a community, and there are national service members out there doing it.
The Franklin Project is striving to make the year of service be a full-time engagement and also paid. Where does the money come from to pay for this year of service?
Yeah, this is where we have a really great and interesting opportunity, I think, to really grow a public-private partnership. So in its current state, most of the funding is federal funding, and those are for traditional programs that many people know already exist, things like AmeriCorps, Peace Corps, AmeriCorps Vista, and CCC. Our vision is to really bring in the broader community and make it a more public-private partnership. And so we're working through a new website called the Service Exchange, where we can really link up people who want to serve, organizations that want to host a service member, and funders that are interested in service, that see the value of service, understand what it can do for a community, and understand how it develops those service members into a strong workforce. And so through this website, we're really going to be working on engaging the broader community, family foundations, corporate foundations, individuals who see the value and want to fund these service members.
Tell us about the goals of the Franklin Project.
Yeah, so the Franklin Project has 3 main goals. One is to create an ecosystem of service for the 21st century. Another is to nationally and locally in a grassroots fashion to raise awareness of the benefits of service for communities and the individuals who serve. And the big one that we're really tracking and working hard on is to create a measurable pathway to 1 million service positions by 2023.
You're involved with the College Possible program, and that, of course, is encouraging young people to go to college for whom it might not have been possible due to economic circumstances. At the same time, you're encouraging a year of service. Do you find those two goals compatible or at any time mutually exclusive, perhaps?
So I actually see a really great connection there. So some of the existing programs that, like AmeriCorps and AmeriCorps Vista, provide the Eli Siegel Education Award. So after a student has gone to college and graduated, if they do have some student loan debt coming out of college, in addition to the living allowance that they receive through their service, at the end they receive an education award that can be used to pay off student loans. So there is another benefit of service that can really help chip away at some of the student loan that a student may have accumulated in college.
Jeff Wilson, thanks so much for joining us on Access Minnesota.
Thank you.
When Access Minnesota continues, we'll hear more about the extraordinary experiences people have had serving both here and abroad.
Access Minnesota will return after these messages. You're watching Access Minnesota. Here's Jim Dubois.
While the concept of national service seems altruistic, for some it's a stepping stone to bigger and better things in their professional careers. Susan Growling served as Vice President and Corporate Officer of Land O'Lakes from 2009 to 2015. She is the founder of the Growling Charitable Trust and also served on the board for the Twin Cities Gay Men's Chorus and was a trustee for the Minnesota Future Farmers of America. Susan, welcome to Access Minnesota.
Thanks for having me.
Tell us what led to your service and volunteer work.
So I came out of college and I was the first person in my family to get a college degree. So there's a lot of excitement, and now you go into for-profit work, you earn a good salary, and you sometime about 30 years from then you retire. Well, I had been about 1 or 2 years into my career and I wanted to go international. At the time though, General Mills had just had a joint venture with Nestle. So all the international positions are going to be filled by Nestle. All of a sudden I realized if I wanted to go out and get international experience, I had to do it in a unique way. And it was at that point, after 2 years of serving in a Fortune 500 company, that I actually left into Peace Corps. Because Peace Corps had that unique blend of needing the business experience, but then also requiring the interest in the philanthropy to go overseas and donate your time. As a result, though, came out of Peace Corps with having a great experience, but working in a fledgling economy and having the ability to work with a counterpart that was actually the Minister of Economics at the time and working with the Danish government. So as a result, you had that experience, you got the professional experience that you wanted, and yet we're making a philanthropic and civic activism move that developed this culture of understanding that the more you gave, the more you personally got back. So it was self-reinforcing. So that's what got me involved, and that's why I think for the rest of my life I've continued to be involved.
Tell us about your Growling Charitable Trust. How does the trust encourage philanthropy among young people?
Yeah, so this is very, very personally exciting. Just in November we set up the trust, and the trust is supposed to do several things. It's specifically targeting K through 12 and developing professional skills. So how do kids understand how to look in their community and identify civic activities or organizations and philanthropy activities that they want to support. Then they come and they talk to the trust and they say, what have they done personally with that organization or that activity? What is it they want to do? And then they ask us for specific help. Now, if you can imagine, well, that's K through 12, so it has to be age appropriate. So if someone's a kindergarten, it means have they gone on site before, have they been active for this organization, and can they simply explain how the community benefits? So that's that civic part, probably joined with the philanthropy. The business skills part is, can you talk to an adult, and can you have a rationale for why you want to do what you do? As they get older, it gets more and more sophisticated, which might mean what is the percentage of funds that's going to the actual activity? How is it run? How is it impacting your community? Can you look at the P&L and understand what this organization is doing? But it comes back to what is their philanthropy activity, and then how is it civic-wise? Is it local community? Is it local state? Or is it all the way to the international setting? And so we're excited. It's been a huge passion and part of my bucket list for a long time.
When we talk about the concept of a year of service, some people might worry that being out of the job market for a year would be detrimental. How do employers look at community service?
I think it's a mixed bag. When I stepped out of a successful career for 2 years, quite candidly, I was told by all of my peers and my numerous bosses that this was a career-threatening decision. That there's no way I could leave corporate America, go do Peace Corps in a rural setting, and then come back and pick up on a career track. And so when I made the move, it really was fraught with a lot of uncertainty. What was I going to come back to? But when I look at how much I learned and what I took away from that, I think at that time, already there was a misunderstanding as to the valuable nature that the individual comes back with. If you want to be a senior leader in a company, you have to have a breadth of experiences. And what a better way to go and get that breadth of experiences than taking a year off and doing something that you've never done before. You're going to learn how to work with ambiguity. You're going to learn how to define projects. You're going to have to learn how to create success in that arena, and then come back and talk about it. Okay? I think now I'll give the millennials a lot of credit. There's a lot of interest among millennials to combine for-profit work with volunteerism and civic activity. What I'm hoping in the future is that's more of a continuum, that people can go in and out of a business, go into a civic organization, go into philanthropy, and make that seamless, because they'll come into whatever that next role is just with a broader background. They'll have experience of a wider range of activities and hurdles, and have had to get themselves through that. So I think it's a wonderful skill set to bring into a career. I think though a lot of, especially larger companies, are still starting just to recognize the value of that contribution, because it is not it's not commonly identified as being a valid business experience. So,
are some of the skills that you get through volunteer work skills that you simply can't obtain through a traditional education?
Yes, I'll say without doubt, yes. Everything from the soft skills to the hard skills. So when I went into Mercy Corps as a global director, before I was at the age of 30, I was asked to go to Asia, into Mongolia, during the middle of an Asian financial crisis, and start a bank. I had not started a bank. I doubt if this was in France, I would have been asked to start that bank, but because it was Mongolia, where very few people wanted to go, I was given an extremely unique opportunity that I would have only gotten through that situation. On the soft side of things, so the personal relationship, how do you understand a culture that is not like your own? How do you understand to perform in that culture? Again, with Mongolia, I landed, had a meeting with the ambassador, and had to, without any language skills, find an office, find a staff, find a driver, find out where to live. That type of resourcefulness, you tend not to get that type of experience when you're in the U.S. because we have processes, we know the culture, we know the systems. You can't get that experience unless you go and do something such as a Peace Corps, I would imagine AmeriCorps, other service organizations such as that. It takes you out of your norm.
Susan Growling, thank you so much for joining us on Access Minnesota.
Thank you very much for having me.
Kate Mortensen is president and CEO of the 2019 Minneapolis Final Four Local Organizing Committee. She works with the Northside Achievement Zone, and she serves on several nonprofit boards, including Minnesota Public Radio, Mortensen Family Foundation, and the Greater Twin Cities United Way. Kate, welcome to Access Minnesota.
Thank you.
You were previously a United States Peace Corps volunteer. Where did you serve, and why did you choose to volunteer in the Peace Corps?
I served from 1988 to about 1990 in the Comoros Islands, which is a bit of a geo quiz. Most people don't know where it is. It's off the east coast of Africa, between Mozambique and then Madagascar in the Indian Ocean, 4 tiny islands. the Comoros Islands. And my decision to go into the United States Peace Corps really had to do with where I was in my life, a recent college graduate or projecting college graduation, and feeling like I wanted the opportunity to do more than you can do when you're sitting in a cubicle with your first time out of college job. And the Peace Corps really seemed to be just this kind of whiteboard that I would have the opportunity to do whatever I could do.
How did your time in the Peace Corps impact your future career?
Oh boy, it's kind of, my Peace Corps experience is really woven all throughout the work I do every day and what my orientation is. My Peace Corps experience really validated for me that that we can accomplish a lot with very little. If we have a vision and a strong belief, we can do a lot with very little. And all of my community impact work since then is frequently done with very limited resources. Peace Corps also gave me a sense of the world being a large and diverse place full of wonderful people, and I really value having experiences with diversity, which we increasingly have here in the state of Minnesota. And just a belief in sort of can-do is sort of a thread that pulls through back from Peace Corps all the way through my projects now.
How did your family and friends react when you told them you were going to join the Peace Corps? Were they generally supportive, or did some of them express perhaps some concerns?
My mother was really worried. When I said, "Mom, I'm going to go live in Africa for 2 years," she pretty much took to her bed, was very worried for my health, for my safety, and I hadn't had a lot of experiences of travel. I grew up in New England. We had some wonderful family vacations in Florida. And I had one student trip abroad to Europe, and I really hadn't been further afield in the world. And so that was kind of the frame that my family and friends had. It was very much one of surprise. And then after that surprise, kind of an understanding that that sounded like something that Kate would do. And then ultimately, incredible support.
What do you say to high school graduates or soon-to-be graduates considering a year of service?
Oh gosh, I say, go do it. Just do it. You will never regret it. You'll learn so much about yourself. You'll learn about what your strengths are and have a chance to really use your strengths with creativity. And honestly, you will set yourself up in whatever you want to do ultimately in your life, because that year will provide you with a base of skills and experiences that you'll draw on for the rest of your career.
What did you find most rewarding about your service in the Peace Corps?
So my first job in the Peace Corps was as a teacher. I was recruited as a teacher. I wasn't trained as a teacher. My background is in journalism. And so I had training. I worked in the classroom. I loved working with my students. I appreciated it very much. They were high school students, and I was just out of college. And so I was toe-to-toe in some formidable classroom situations, which were very character building for me. But what I liked most about my Peace Corps experiences were the entrepreneurial opportunities that existed. Again, that opportunity to sort of think beyond the cubicle of what a first job experience might be for a young person coming out of college, and really just stretch myself. And I value that to this day.
Do you have advice for someone who wants to get involved in service or volunteer work in their community? What, for example, are the first steps they should take?
Talk to peers and mentors who have had the experience that you're seeking to have. Spend a little time whiteboarding what you'd like to get out of the experience, because believe me, you will harvest even more than you plant in your service experience. So those are some suggestions to get people started. But the very first suggestion I would make is look into it. Look into it and consider it for yourself, even if you haven't before, because again, you'll never regret it.
Kate Mortensen, thanks so much for joining us on Access Minnesota.
Thank you.
When Access Minnesota returns, we'll hear more about the benefits of service.
Access Minnesota will return after these messages. You're watching Access Minnesota. Here's Jim Dubois.
And now we continue our conversation with a service member whose experience in the Peace Corps and AmeriCorps has impacted both her personal and professional lives. Sandra Samuels is president and CEO of the Northside Achievement Zone. She is the former marketing representation specialist for Ford Motor Company and serves on the board for the Children's Defense Fund, the Harvest Network of Charter Schools, and also sits on the Judicial Selection Commission for the state of Minnesota, the leadership team of Generation Next, and the African American Leadership Forum's Education Committee. Sandra, welcome to Access Minnesota.
Thank you.
You volunteered for the Peace Corps in Botswana. Tell us about this experience and what made you want to volunteer there.
Yeah, it was an amazing, altering experience. Two things. Well, one, I was in marketing. I had just graduated graduate school as a marketing major and was working for Ford Motor Company. And getting experience internationally was something that most people who had this long view of their career wanted to do. And Peace Corps would afford you that. As an African American, I really, on a personal level, wanted to go to where I knew my ancestors were from, and not just stay at a Hyatt, but go and actually experience the people and the culture, and really support the community I was a part of. And so it was just a perfect fit.
What projects did you work on in Botswana, and how did your service impact the communities?
Small business development is what I worked on there. So I had a chance to work with people entrepreneurs from basket weavers to brick molders to bakers. I gained a little bit of weight while I was there, by the way, because I had to always test the bread that came out of the brick ovens. And so it really worked with, I was part of a government office, as it turns out. I ran the office to help local folks start businesses, get training and start businesses free of charge. And so when I was there, I was in a northwest corner of Botswana in a village called Gomore, but I traveled, wildly across the country. And I want to say about, 25, 30 businesses were started, and then I also helped to support and maintain ones that were already in operation.
When you told your family and friends that you were going to join the Peace Corps and go to Africa, were they generally supportive, or did some express concerns about perhaps your safety?
Well, put it like this. It was around Christmas time, so I asked for a camera. I told my folks, but I couldn't ask. I didn't want to tell, because I had just gotten this great job. I was the first to get a master's degree in my family, and then I have this great job, and so I asked for a camera. And then right before I was supposed to leave, I kind of waited close to that time. I called my mother at work, because, she's perfect at work, and said, "Ma, you know what I wanted that camera for?" And I told her about my Peace Corps service. And her response was, "My baby's not crazy. Okay, bye-bye." And so Mom wasn't really up for it at first. It really meant me walking away from what was a really lucrative career. And so, but afterwards, just loved it. She came to visit and was hitchhiking with me throughout the country. So it was great.
So what advice would you give to someone who might find themselves in a similar circumstance, a great career, and yet they have this desire to serve somewhere?
Yeah. Oh, it is a resume enhancer. So not only do you get to impact the world and really bring brotherly, sisterly love around the globe, that was the intention of Peace Corps, spreading peace and helping people to understand Americans more, and then us to understand people of the world as well. And so not only do you get that, but it is a great resume builder. And so I was not just a young woman who had a master's degree in marketing, but I was one who also did small business development internationally. And so it is absolutely a win-win, even if you're not doing small business development, whether you're doing teaching, anything else. It is just an amazing experience that our corporations really value, because our marketplace is very global, and many of our corporations are multinational, if that's your route. And so it's a valued experience.
Sandra, you also served in the AmeriCorps. Tell us about that service and whereabouts in the country you served.
Yeah, it was really exciting. So when I was leaving Peace Corps at the end of my service, I was in our country office. I had my backpack on. I was ready to travel around Africa before I went home. And a fax came through right before I left to the Peace Corps office, and it said, "Peace Corps meet AmeriCorps." You've served your country overseas, now come home and serve. And it was signed President Clinton. And now I was already jazzed up from President Kennedy, who had spoken those words decades before, right? And you can tell I'm easily motivated, right? And inspired. And so, so I thought, yeah, why wouldn't I? You know, it was such a rich experience. I gained more than I gave. And I said, you know, I want to do this at home as well. And so I left Peace Corps, and really, as soon as I got home, I started my AmeriCorps service in Philadelphia, working on violence prevention.
How did you get involved with the Northside Achievement Zone, and what kinds of service does the Achievement Zone provide?
Yeah, well, the Northside Achievement Zone really grew out of my being a neighbor in the middle of North Minneapolis and raising a family there and having neighbors and friends that I was really concerned for, and hopeful about as well. I mean, I call it the tale of two neighborhoods. It's a great place to live, and it's also not. And that led me, when you're living and breathing it every day, to say, well, what can I do to make a difference? And so started a nonprofit, my husband actually, and my COO at the time, like 12 years ago. And it morphed into the Northside Achievement Zone, which is really a place that we couldn't imagine we would have gone to, but basically it is working in North Minneapolis to end multi-generational poverty using both education and family stability as levers. And we have 44 partners, and we've all come together around education and whole family support, working with the same families. We'll be at 1,000 families in a few months and 2,500 children to put them on a path to college and to support their families, two-generation approach, and it's been pretty incredible.
How can a year of service specifically help low-income students and students of color?
Well, you know, we have hired a number of AmeriCorps employees over the years. Hired them as volunteers, but then also hired them when they were done with their year of service. It's a way to give back to community, of both gaining experience. Again, that goes far on your resume and who you are, you know, as a person, professionally and personally, and then you get to give back. And we've hired a number of people who are actually from the Northside community, and I know that they feel a real sense of ownership, and AmeriCorps has become a really great vehicle for people to get that kind of experience.
Sandra Samuels, thanks so much for joining us on Access Minnesota.
You're welcome.
Check out these resources for more information about service opportunities. That's all for this month's edition of Access Minnesota. We'll see you again next month. Thanks for watching.
Access Minnesota. Issues that matter to you. Join us again next week as we bring you the newsmakers and stories that shape our everyday lives. Access Minnesota is produced by the Minnesota Broadcasters Association in cooperation with the University of Minnesota's College of Liberal Arts.